Hi there, I'm Cathy Wagner, Director of Horticulture.
I'm Michael Amato, Horticulturist here at 5 Farms.
And while we're here working from a safe distance apart, we thought it might be a good opportunity to show folks who are spending a little bit more time at home, who might have an interest in doing a little bit more gardening at home, maybe getting into vegetable gardening. Mike actually takes care of all of our production and vegetable gardens here at the club and works with our culinary team to make sure that they have amazing fresh produce throughout the summer. So he's been hard at work in our new high tunnel cold frame greenhouse that he built last year, and he's got several spring crops started, so I thought maybe we could take a look at what Mike is growing.
So this spring I decided I love radishes. They are generally one of our earliest crops. So this season I've grown approximately 4 different types of radish. One, which was a new variety this season, was called a hailstone, which is supposed to be one of the earliest radishes. It's a all white radish. As you can see, these are very close together. I'll pull one out. But
beautiful.
Generally about the size of a golf ball, and these are about ready to go. In this greenhouse, I have staggered crops. So say I started seeds in the ground, say 4 weeks prior. I would go in another 2 weeks and come in and sow another crop, so then that way we can have a successional crop harvest for the culinary staff, so they could have a consistent yield.
So that's great. So radishes are a pretty easy early crop. What are some other crops that BCC members and friends might be able to grow at home if they don't have a unheated greenhouse?
Absolutely. So this time of the season is good for your cold crops, which would generally be your leafy greens, so like Swiss chard. I have some behind Cathy that was started actually last year. Swiss chard. Other leafy greens like Mizuna, which is a type of mustard. Very pretty, adds a lot of color and texture to a salad, as well as some Japanese cabbage, and as well as started, since we do have the benefit of a few earlier weeks because of the heat of the greenhouse, I did start some beets as well. That generally is an early spring crop, as well as kale, growing some dinosaur kale, or this will actually, if you place it in a good spot, can actually even be a perennial. It can come back every year.
So these crops look pretty far along. When did you start these crops in the greenhouse?
Most of these crops started about the first week of March, and since then I have staggered multiple crops, just so that's what's showing in the varying sizes. And yeah, so it's been about 4 weeks that they've been in here.
What advice do you have for people trying to start these at home? Are these things that they should be starting in a pot inside? Are they going to sow these seeds directly in the garden? And how soon can they start on this stuff?
Generally, all of these you can start sowing directly into the soil. If you needed to grow something inside, or if you wanted to get an early start, you certainly could. But most of these are pretty cold hardy. Generally, I believe it's about 4 to 6 weeks, they say, about before the last frost. You can sow most of these seeds, and I also have started some other general flowers and other things in here, just because we benefit from the slightly warmer weather inside the house.
Yeah, we've got some nice tropical cannas starting up. We have some sedum that we're propagating, some lettuce, and different types of greens. Mike, what's the best way to harvest greens for people who might want to do like a cut and come again style of harvest?
So generally you're going to want to cut usually towards the outside of your plant is going to be your older growth. You can eat young baby greens. Obviously we can sow seeds and harvest the early leaves. As for instance, this Japanese cabbage, I could come through and harvest this, but these will generally, I will thin this out and they'll grow larger heads, which in turn I could harvest the entire thing. But as like the Swiss chard that we had shown you earlier, that has been in here for an entire year, and if you look at the outsides of it, it has slowly been cut back.
So you're taking the outside leaves, harvesting those.
Correct.
And letting the central growth continue here.
Yes.
On lettuces, like your bib lettuces or romaines, you can also just cut them, grab the whole thing in a little ponytail, cut it about 2 inches above the soil level, and it will also continue to sprout up from the center. Another tip, if you are short on space, what I like to do is actually in a lot of my spring pots, I'll combine lettuces, which you can, if you don't want to bother with starting things from seed, a lot of the nurseries, garden centers are selling 6-packs or small trays of lettuces and other leafy greens. You can actually combine those in your spring pots with pansies, some forced bulbs or other kind of spring interest, so that you have a beautiful front porch pot that you can also go out and harvest from whenever you need some lettuce. Feel free to post any questions that you may have about your gardens, vegetable garden related or otherwise. We are here for you. We're happy to help you, and good luck in the garden.